Our next speaker is Dr. Lee Ann Milburn.
Unfortunately, they asked me to talk about demographics today, and your pancakes have just hit right behind your Calgary Stampede belt buckle. I'm going to get everybody to stand up for me. On your feet, please. All right, hands over your head, up. Oh, let's get that pancake moving. Okay, now wait, nobody sit down yet. Farmers can sit down. If you consider yourself a farmer, you can sit down. Or a rancher, we're in Alberta. If you consider yourself a rancher, you can sit down. All right, if you don't own any property anywhere, you can sit down. If you only own property in the city, you can sit down. Only property in the city. Now look around you. These people are non-farm, rural landowners. These are the people I'm going to talk about today. If you look around, we're probably looking at maybe a quarter of our audience today. Okay? That's a lot of people. Everybody can sit down. Thank you. All right, so what happened is the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources was interested in this non-farm rural population, these people who are left standing, the people who aren't farmers but who own land out in the country. And what we think is that about half of the land in southern Ontario is owned by these people. And this is a trend that we expect to see across the country as time moves on. We're going to actually see more and more land, especially in the southern part of the country, being owned by non-farmers in rural areas. So we've got all of these conservation and stewardship programs that are working with farmers, and this land is being moved into the hands of these other people. And what does that mean in terms of our program delivery? That was the challenge that they put to me. So the issue, we've got the changing population demographics, we've got this deconcentration of development where we're moving these people out into the rural areas, but we're breaking the land into smaller parcels. We've got the cities, of course, expanding into those rural areas, and then we've got the change in the landscape because these people, for the most part, aren't farming their land. They own the land, they may rent it to a farmer, although we're finding not that much of that, but in a lot of cases they hold that land and then they want to turn it into some kind of use that's going to be positive for the environment. So they're dispersed, they have different residence locations, some of them live in the city, some of them live in the country, some of them live in town. It makes it hard to figure out how to communicate your programs. And they tend to have a lack of knowledge and skills related to environmental problems, which is a major challenge for us. So this is what we were trying to do, help develop an environmental stewardship plan, which is based on the environmental farm plan model. And Wayne and I will be talking about that more in the concurrent session. So this is the area that we studied, southern Ontario, basically stretching from Ottawa all the way down to Windsor. You can tell it was a big chunk of land that we were working with. We did a total of 9 focus groups and 944 questionnaires, and we had a response rate of 75%. So we're pretty confident in our results. So here's what we found. About 47% of those landowners in southern Ontario were retirees. And we include retired farmers as non-farmers because they're not farmers anymore, although they're a slightly different group. So about 47% are retired. So what does that tell you right away about the average age of this group, right? 18% are weekenders. Weekenders are the people who just come up for the weekend and then head back to the city. 25% are rebounders. Those are the people who grew up in the country, moved to the city, and moved back. Okay? So rebounders. They start out in the country, they work for years, usually in the city, and then they move back to the country. Farm child is what we call the people who were the children of farmers, so they spent some time at least when they were kids on the farm. You've got your commuters, 27% commuters, and over 50 kilometers is how we defined commuters. And then you've got 21% urbanites, so people who really are city dwellers and who just own this piece of property for an investment. So what we said was, all right, what is it that you've done on your land in the past? Because we're trying to understand who you are. So what we found was mostly it was trees, 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 trees. So they had planted trees, they removed trees, then we had the trails, we had nothing, which is actually good from most conservation and stewardship perspectives. Nothing is a good answer. Removed dead wood, again, a tree-related answer. And then you start to see some of these other solutions. And then we said, what do you want to do on your land in the future? And we saw trees, yeah, pretty much trees. So, you know, it actually was very helpful, I have to say. So plant trees, remove trees, nothing, create or enhance upon, create trails. These are people, you know, their average age is 57, their high percentage of them is retired. They really are interested in working with their land in an effective way in terms of conservation and stewardship and having recreational benefits from their land. You know, they really see health benefits as directly tied to having this piece of land. And so the challenge for conservation and stewardship is to make that work in terms of our program delivery. So we asked them, what do you want to learn about? Oh, there's the trees at the top. And then they said, wetlands and wildlife ponds, good news for Shane. Income opportunities from their land, management of natural areas. So, and here was the stickler. They said, the Minister of Natural Resources said to me, we want to know how it is that we need to communicate with this group. How do we need to talk to them? And I came back with the very, very clear response, which was one-on-one with local resource people, and number 2 being local workshops. And they said, well, but we can't afford to do that. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I just did the survey. I'm just telling you what they said. You know, these people want to work one-on-one with local resource people. And this is a major challenge in our budget situation right now. They don't know their land, not the way a farmer does. These people buy the land. They don't own it for very long in general. They don't know the difference between an elm and a poplar. You know, they don't know the signs of poor water quality. They don't know what the soil conditions are on their land. For the most part, they don't even know the history of their land. It just is what it is. They want to do what's right for their land, but they don't know what it is. And because they don't have those basic skills in terms of identifying what they're seeing, they can't very effectively match that up to appropriate conservation and stewardship activities. So even if we give them the information, they don't know what's appropriate for their land. So what they really want is the conservation or stewardship professional come out and say to them, oh, look, that's what you have right there. And oh, look, you have some really nice examples of over here. And if you would just do this, then you would see lots more of the things they want to see, which are things like bunny rabbits and deer and things like that. And you need to be able to make that connection for them. And that's the challenge with some of these other options towards the bottom of the list, is it doesn't provide them with that basic level of what have you got on your land and what could you have on your land. So we were interested in seeing kind of how we could go about getting this information out to them. So 54% of them belong to environmental groups because it's a social network for them as well. They move out to these rural areas. They're passionate about the environment. You know, how is it we can get this information out? Well, one way is through these environmental groups. So the Ontario Woodlot Association, the Stewardship Councils, and environmental action groups. 81% of them have at least some university-level education. They're very highly educated in general. A lot of them are professionals, and a huge proportion are teachers of some type. Okay, so we've got a lot of professionals really highly educated. So once you can tell them what they need to know, they will run with it from there.